We're so glad for the Lord and what He's done for us, and we appreciate you tuning in. We're going to jump right into things. We are looking at the subject of I will, and we're talking about us being intentional in our walk with the Lord. And this week we're looking at Joshua chapter 24, and we've been looking at verses 14 and 15. And again, verse 15 says, "If it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom ye will serve." And we are looking at the subject of I will serve. Again, the Bible teaches us as believers to be servants. Now, in this chapter, again, Joshua is coming to the end of his life, and he sees some of the problems that Israel is facing. And one of those problems is simply this, friend, that they were guilty of giving their time and attention and adoration and service to false gods. There was idolatry that was going on, and Joshua is confronting this face on. Now, his dying words to the nation was concerning their service to the Lord. By the way, he sure had a right to speak on the subject, because since he was a young man, he has been faithful in this area of his life. He has been the servant of the Lord. He's been an example of servanthood to the Israelites. And his dying desire was simply this, that they would serve the Lord. He brings them to a point of decision, and we find ourselves at that point as well. The question that's before us today is this: will you serve the Lord? Who will we serve? Now let's look at some of the things in this passage. I see their challenge to service. There is a challenge to service here. And we got to consider the reason for Joshua's challenge. And that's really found in the first 13 verses of this chapter. And I'm not going to read those. You go and read those for yourself. But in those first 13 verses, we see some of the problems that are going on there. And Joshua is caught up in the goodness of God. I mean, for him, I think it's hard for him to think how anyone in Israel would want to serve any other false god when God had been so good to them, had brought them into the promised land, had delivered them, dear friend, and walked with them. And so Joshua now has a reason to challenge them. You know, I think about us today and where we are today in America and in the church, dear friend. There's a reason for God's men to stand and call the people of God to service today. I know that there's some pastors today, and it's becoming more popular, that say we can't ask too much of our people. And so a lot of churches, and this before the virus ever took place, there was a lot of churches that had just gone to one service a week, and they say to their people, just come one time a week to Bible study and worship. And their reasoning is we don't want to ask too much of people. Well, I want to tell you something. Servanthood simply means this, that there's going to have to be sacrifice. And God calls for us to sacrifice. Now, someone would say, how could you as a pastor ask people to make such a sacrifice? And here's the answer. Because our Lord sacrificed for us, dear friend. It wasn't convenient for him to go to a cross and die for our sin. It wasn't convenient for him to have spikes driven through his hands and through his feet. It wasn't convenient, dear friend, for him to be beat that day and the crown of thorns placed upon his head and a spear driven through his side. It wasn't convenient. But in that moment, he became the suffering servant for you and I, so that we might live eternally with him. And so he has served us, and he is our great example of servanthood in the fact that he sacrificed. And so you and I are called to sacrifice as well. And so the reason for Joshua's challenge is because he understood the goodness of God and the grace of God that's bestowed upon those that serve him. What a joy. What a joy it is to serve Jesus, dear friend. And if you're a man of God, I want to challenge you today. Challenge your people. Challenge your people to greater heights of faithfulness and service today. Let's be the servants that God has called us to be. Let's respond to the Lord in faithfulness today. And as a child of God, let us say this: I will serve. I will serve. I hope you think about that. Till the next time, may God bless